This week in Post, blending landscape photos to craft your final image. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In Post. Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited about today's video because this situation, blending these two landscape photos together, this is one of the scenarios. It's like why I started doing In the Field and In Post as a series, is there are these situations where some of the work happens out in the field with your camera and some happens back in the studio, and those two pieces of the equation come together to get our final image. So if you haven't watched In the Field this week, take a look at that. You'll see the capture side of this scene, but in brief, what happened is windy situation, had some wildflowers in the foreground. I wanted to capture two different frames, one with crisp foreground and one with a little softness in the background. And so I've got those two photos here in Lightroom. You can see this one here on the left. Let's make that a little bigger. This one has nice crisp foreground. All the flowers are not moving around, so this was a very fast shutter speed. But the ocean's a little bit choppy, and if I move to the next photo, you can see the difference where there's just a little bit of softness out here on the water. It's still very textured, but just a little bit of softness. And the hills, the lighting slightly changed, so the hills look kind of nice too. But the foreground, you can see right in this area here, that's all blurry and fuzzy. So I'm going to take these two images into layering software and blend them together. So in Lightroom, I've just done the basics. So there's really no major happenings here. Slight adjustments on white point and black point just to get the two ends of our histogram in order. And so both of these photos are very similar in terms of lighting. So there's not any extra work we have to do with making the exposures match. So we're going to select both of these and send them on over to layering software. I'm going to send these over into ON1 layers. That's my layering photo package of choice. But you can do the same thing in Photoshop or other packages that have layering options. So let me get these over into ON1. I'll join you on the other side. Okay, so we've landed over in ON1. Let's take a look at how these came into the software as a layer stack. So on the top, this top layer, which is visible right now, we've got our soft background. So this is really our ocean and our sky. So I'm going to name this Ocean and Sky. I'll ignore the capitalization. If I remove that, make it invisible, we can see the bottom layer here. This is our foreground. So I'll call that foreground. And if you noticed, when I re-enable this, there's a slight shift in the photo. Now, certainly the lighting is causing some little optical illusions with us seeing the image kind of move. But pay attention to something like these rock areas where it's clear that that rock is moving to the left and to the right. So we need to do a little bit of alignment work. And in Photo RAW 2018, alignment's still a manual process. I cannot wait for the auto alignment feature in 2019. But we've got a trick that we can do here. I'm going to take this top layer selected and change the blending mode to difference. And what this is showing me is everything that's different between the two photos. And I'm just going to zoom in kind of in this area here. And what I'm going to do now here, let's see, we're going to grab our move or our transform tool, and I'm just going to use my arrow keys and start nudging things around. And what I am trying to do is get this to be as black and dark as possible, and really paying attention to edges, like the edge of this rock, the edge of this hillside. It doesn't need to be absolute because there are lighting changes, but the closer I can get to that edge being very crisp, I should say crisp, basically almost invisible, then I've got good alignment. What difference is doing is it's saying, show me the pixels that are different between the two layers. And so if I find a spot where the lighting was consistent and I've not had too much changes in my frame, I said it was windy up there, so wind will shift the tripod a little bit or the head of the camera, whatever it was, then I can get these things aligned pretty well. And that looks good. I'll apply that and I'll switch the mode back to normal. So now I've got the alignment done. Let's get back zoomed out. And we'll notice there's a little tiny bit of, oops, let's get rid of that cursor. There's a little tiny bit of artifacts on the edge because these two layers are slightly off. We'll deal with that toward the end. It's simple crop to take care of it. But what we need to do now is the masking part. So bringing these two images together. So on the top, we have ocean and sky. On the bottom, we have the foreground that we want to reveal. So I'm going to apply a mask to the ocean and sky layer, painting away what's down here in the foreground to reveal the crisp foreground. layer beneath it. So we'll grab masking brush. I'm going to leave the edge detection, the perfect brush, off right now. Let's zoom in at 100%. We'll just start over here. And I'm just going to kind of do this by hand to start with. And I won't make you watch the painstaking, how long will it take me to do all of this masking, because the attention into detail just takes a little bit of time. I want you to get the concept here, right? I have other videos that talk about the perfect brush, that talk about other masking techniques. I'm just going to do this like this half of the photo here. So running down the edge here, and you can see that the flowers being revealed are much crisper. Now in this area here, if I press the O key to show my mask overlay, it looks like I bled up into the ocean a little bit. Shift X, notice the cursor now has a plus. I'm painting in. I'll turn on the edge detection and get a nice small brush there and just kind of nestle back in there to eliminate that bit of ocean that peeked through, kind of there too. Now this is a little bit art and a little bit science, because some spots where the ocean behind it, because we had a little bit of shifting in the layers, there may be things that get revealed from that bottom layer that are ocean that, I guess strictly speaking, we wouldn't want. We want just those crisp flowers. But what it's really about is just getting something that looks pretty good, right? I mean, right now, I don't notice anything other than those couple of spots right there that looked a little odd. Turn my mask overlay back on. Shift X to go back into paint out mode. I still have the edge detection turned on, so this is where I'm getting able to kind of click into these tinier areas where the flowers actually have detail. All right, we'll turn that off. We'll make sure the ocean behind it looks good. Looks pretty good. I'm going to turn off the perfect brush, make my brush nice and big, because now I just want to get the rest of this part, right? So I'm going to sweep all this stuff away, and this is going to reveal all of the nice crisp flowers in the foreground. So let's get that piece done, turn that off, and now this is all nice and crisp. Move down here, make sure I've got that bottom part. There we go. And we'll repeat this for the rest of the image. So again, we'll do the big part first this time, and I can be nice and cavalier with my brush strokes. And this is a good way to work, where you're turning off edge detection in whatever tool you're using, because edge detection will take more processing power, right? Every time you move your cursor around, the tool has to look at what you're brushing on and make a decision. Are you moving across an edge, inside an edge, outside an edge, and so forth. So the longer that you can work without the edge detection, just the more rapid your editing is going to be. All right, I'm going to do a perfect brush again. That's Command or Control R will actually turn that on. And we'll just click through here. At this point, I'll probably just turn off the mask overlay, and that way I can see, am I getting those crisp pieces to come in, like those orange flowers right there. A few more clicks, maybe a couple more. This little guy up here, right? And just making sure that I've got all those pieces in place so that we have a nice crisp edge on the flowers. Let's zoom out to the full view here. And so the end result, so what have we got now? We have the nice soft background with a little bit of the edge taken off of the ocean, and the foreground is nice and crisp. So this was the first photo, which was everything was crisp, and this is the second one, and I find this a little more pleasing. It's letting me focus on the flowers a little bit more. There's still some work to be done, some basic processing. I'll probably add a little contrast and add maybe a touch of a glow, and maybe boost the greens up on the hills a little bit and get a final image. Well, the tip of the week is to blend exposures, and I know I've talked about that before. This is not a earth-shattering new technique, but it's a good one to be reminded of. Anytime you've got a scene where you have elements that either need to be captured differently because of conditions, or there are different elements in the scene that are moving around and you want to capture them in a certain way, blending them together to get a final image. That's a great approach to achieve the vision that you have in your mind's eye. As far as the processing on this final photo, I did end up doing what I thought I would do. I added a little bit of contrast for the rocks and the cliffs and a touch of that into the foreground. Also added a softer glow on things, just maybe 20% of a glow, just to give it a little bit of a dreamy feel. A little more greens in the hills. And I actually added a lens flare, a really soft one, coming in from the upper left corner. I already had some brightness happening up there just by the nature of the photo. So went with that, accentuated it, and just gave a little bit of an extra touch to that, that dreamy, ethereal feel. That will do it for this week's In Post. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, let me know somehow. Comments on the video below. Questions about photography, always like to hear from you. You can leave them in the comments. You want to keep it private, send it to me through my website. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.